Cool. Sounds good. Well, I suppose we can start there then. So in terms of like what you're doing with your label and the management stuff, how has there been a massive impact as a result? Obviously there has been an impact, but like how have you been coping and managing with it?
Well, I guess like in the first week or two, we were like, well, what the hell are we going to do? Like, should we still be doing our releases? What is the impact of that going to be? Should we push everything back? But then I guess after like speaking to people, it kind of feels like the artists that I manage are all independent artists and not signed to any major labels. And it feels like if you're an independent artist, it feels like you should still keep going and keep doing releases. Also, I think because we don't know when we're going to be out of this. So if we're kind of waiting to be out, we don't know how long that's going to be. And can't really wait 6 months to put anything out. So
yeah.
I think we kind of decided that we're going to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. And I suppose as like a consumer, you know, it would feel like a bit of a shame to not hear from your favorite artist or whatever during this time. That said, it's kind of some artists, depending on the type of music they're releasing, it feels more suitable. Like obviously with Drake today, the thing that he came out with, it's geared towards you're staying in, you've got nothing to do, you're bored. Whereas there are some songs that you want to hear in a festival, you want to hear when you're on a night out, that actually, if you release them now, potentially could get lost in the ether. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody has any.
And we've definitely like discussed that with our artists. So we've like changed what singles we're going to put out next, for example.
Okay.
Because, like you said, it's got to suit the tone of the moment as well. Otherwise it feels weird if your song's all about like we're going to go raving on Friday night or something.
Yeah. What is the tone? Does that mean there's a quarantine sound? What's the sound of quarantine?
I don't know.
Is there a sound?
I think we also have to be careful that like you don't just want to play like you just don't want to release all sad, depressing music as well.
Exactly, yeah.
They need to be uplifted right now. So I guess it's the balance of like still feeling like you're uplifting people, but not in an inappropriate way, or like, hey, listen to my new single, like pushing your stuff while like you're not appreciating that people might have grandparents in hospital, or someone that's passed away. Like you have to, I think, be sensitive to what's happening.
Context, yeah.
Interesting though, because it's kind of like of all the industries, the music industry feels and seems like it can't go on a break. Like it just feels like sometimes some stuff feels a bit tokenism, like not naming any brands, but you see a lot of brands saying we want to give people money or we want to do this, and it's like how much of that is for future work, how much of that is because you really appreciate what the people are actually going through. I don't know if you've seen any like breaks, Tim, in terms of like business and activity in the music space.
Good question. Well, definitely streaming numbers are down, which was a surprise for me. I think that's probably more of an indication because a lot of people consume music as a background, for example, when they're commuting to work or when they're at the gym or, those sort of day-to-day activities when they're driving their car. So streaming numbers are definitely down. From my perspective, so I work in the strategy division of the Orchard, which is a global distribution company, which is a subsidiary of Sony. So a lot of our artists are independent artists, so similar to what Linda was saying. A lot of work that I've been working on the last week is more helping the financial side of the artists. So thinking of innovative ways that they can boost their income in this situation because many of them can't tour. As I'm sure you're aware, there's a lot of things going on in terms of like IG feed, IG Live, Facebook Live, Twitch, YouTube. So a lot of my work at the moment is sort of thinking about ways that we can potentially monetize that or looking at new opportunities for artists to sort of work within. Outside of the usual IG Live, Twitter Live, there's a lot of really interesting apps out at the moment which allow for more sort of subscription base, whereby if you're like a really big fan of, let's say, a Dua Lipa, you can enter into sort of like a one-on-one conversation with her, sort of like a digital version of like a meet and greet. So there's loads of like innovative companies like that out at the moment which are doing very well, which slowly I think a lot of artists will naturally migrate to. I think at the moment a lot of focus is purely on the YouTubes, the Twitters, the TikToks, the Twitches, but over time, especially if the situation goes on longer, I think you'll see a lot more artists move into different companies like the one I mentioned. IG Live, good, bad? Because it feels like it's like oversaturated now.
Depends who's doing it,
I think it's it's catering for what people want, right? I think a lot of people are at home. Some of us are working. Some of us are still fortunate enough to still work from home. Some of us aren't. But majority of us all still have access to our phones and are on it a lot. And it's sort of giving the general public what they want. It's light-hearted competition. It's interaction with your favorite artists. It's your favorite artists talking to your other favorite artists, which you never see. It's a nice way, because on a day-to-day basis we live our lives, and the lives of the artists that we follow is very different. But because of this pandemic, we're all living the same lives. We're all locked down in our respective homes. We're all not got much to do. So I think it's a great chance for artists and fans to really connect on that basis.
Have you had many people doing that, Linda, in terms of on your label management and stuff?
Yeah, I think right now it definitely shows like the artists that are really good at that kind of stuff naturally, and the artists that aren't. And I'm really fortunate that, yeah, my artists are pretty good at that kind of stuff and thinking of loads of ideas themselves, like every Friday talking about new releases with another artist and just doing freestyles every day and stuff like that. So you just got to be way more creative than you ever have been, really.
Yeah, it's a different skill set, though, isn't it? Like, this
not
is
everyone
actually
has it.
just exactly, yeah. So this is about social media and how you connect with fans. It's not like, and I guess I know, Abe, you want to get to it about like how you focus and harness like your sound or work on your music. This is like be in the market, stay relevant. I thought it was interesting that you said that like people feel more connected. You guys see the J-Lo Twitter tweet of her like son bringing her a drink?
No.
Basically, she's got like the most baller ass house, obviously because it's J-Lo, and she took this video in her garden of her son bringing her a drink and being like, obviously, you know, we're on lockdown, it's really tough, but the service here isn't bad. And the comments just killed her, because they're like, how can you say that we're all sharing the same lockdown experience with your mansion? And her house looks like the house from Parasite. So I don't know. I know it feels like we're looking the same, but even when I watched the Drake video today, I was like, my lockdown in my one-bed flat in Walthamstow versus, what's Drake's thing called? The Estate.
2C. The Embassy, isn't it?
The Embassy. It's interesting. Let me tell you, we're not. I feel like we're not.
Yeah, but the 2C slide can bring us all together, man.
Okay.
I think I agree with you, Anne, but I think that kind of goes back to Linda's point. There's certain artists who are a lot better at mixing with their fans on social media, and it shows. Like a good example, someone like a Tory Lanez, who's, I'm sure he lives in an amazing house, but one of the reasons why his IG Live, what's it called, Corona Radio, is popping off, because it's not about like his massive mansion or anything. You only literally see Tory like face pressed against the camera, him and his mates having jokes, having fun. That's the sort of vibe that everyone else can relate to. You're right, like J-Lo doing that video, or Drake showing his massive mansion. Very few people can sort of relate to that.
But can you like practice social media? So in terms of like artist development, Linda, I don't know if you have had any experience of that, but are there times when you're like, well, this artist needs to do this, aside from sort of COVID-19 or whatever? Can you actually practice that, or is it a case of you either have it or you don't? Because it looks like the latter, looking at the screen sometimes, but it'd be good to get your view on that.
Well, yeah, it's hard. Like if you're a music artist, you're like good at making music. It's like a completely different thing to also have an online personality. And it's just really hard that now more than ever, it is like your online personality is so important to your music career. Where I guess before it was okay if you weren't really good at that. You can still put out great music and people are going to stream it and play it. So I think like as management, like we can give artists ideas for stuff and like throw ideas around. Like we always work as a kind of team. But, you know, I always think that the ideas that come directly from the artist are always the ones that work best anyway when it comes directly from them. Like they know their fan base better than anyone.
Yeah. I definitely think authenticity is something that from the Orchard is definitely much what everyone always promotes, is you have to be authentic. I think nowadays every person has like a really good bullshit detector. Like they can just tell if you're not being authentic. And I think if you don't have that natural charisma or that ability to sort of engage with your fans, and that's fine. You kind of just have to own it sometimes and sort of, I mean, there's a lot of, I can't think of anyone on the top of my head, but there's a lot of artists who are quite awkward, and that's kind of like their USP. So when they do sort of like interviews or IG lives, their awkwardness is genuine, and people appreciate that because they're going out of their comfort zone. And I think, again, that sort of lends back to your point that there's a lot of people who deal with being awkward or not very confident in situations. And if you can see your favorite artist also sort of feeling that way, it just makes the two of you feel a lot closer.
Yeah.
Yo, is it working?
As Louis joining us now.
Yo, what's good?
Hello there, Louis. You got your video?
I don't know why it's not working.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. How are you?
Yeah, all right.
Well, we're diving straight into you now, mate, because we've been talking about how artists feel, how they're getting on with like not being able to, perform live and releasing different types of music to cater to the crisis that we're in. So, from your perspective, how have you been managing it?
To be honest, like it's already been this for a number of weeks longer for me and a few artists that have also had like suspected coronavirus. So I've already been like in lockdown, essentially, isolation for 3 weeks. So it's kind of already mad. And I don't know. I think a lot of the conversation I'm having with a lot of people is that just it's very important to look around right now as an artist and remember who did and who didn't help you. And then you recognize and see the industry for what it is. And a lot of independent artists are well versed on understanding like the truth behind the industry and where the people have your best interests at heart. But it's quite obvious now, like where are the labels bailing out their artists that don't have any gigs? And like where, like all self-employed people, our revenue income has just dropped by 90% or more. But then there's the whole thing where people are like, oh, I was having a conversation with my boy yesterday and they're like, oh, it's such a great time to, everyone's saying it's such a great time to be creative. I think that's only coming from people that aren't creative. Because this is like this is almost a normal day-to-day basis for a musician.
Yeah.
You're outside all day making music, but we now have this weird presence of a fucking pandemic and the stresses of all these other things. So it's not such a good time to be creative.
Yeah. I think it's a good time to be innovative then in terms of how you make your money. Like rather than look at the usual forms of like touring and streaming, look at other avenues to earn your money.
Yeah, but again, it's like it shouldn't be on us to be innovative.
Okay. And what's in terms, because Louis, you alluded to it there, where you're talking about what the obligation should be for, there's publishing companies and other companies that are still. Is that my intent? Yeah. In terms of other people making money, but like, have you had any dealings with like promoters? Because,
Well, that's
yeah.
One. I mean, I've definitely not had it nearly as bad as many artists because I'm in the stage where I'm making my next album. So I wasn't like actively looking for gigs or planning too much. But then again, this was festival circuit time.
Yeah.
And that for me is not like I don't have a contract that got cancelled like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But there's an income that was going to come that now no longer there. And it's interesting because it's like, well, I'd be interested to know, and my feeling and from what I'm hearing is the promoters and the people running, the festival bookers and the booking agents aren't losing out on money. They still get paid, but they're not paying the artists.
Yeah. Linda, have you heard anything about that? In terms of,
shouldn't you be piping up?
I do have some insight, but I just wanted to hear what Linda, if she's had any insight from her artists and like festival bookings, live shows.
Well, I know loads of artists have lost loads of money. Like if you were in the middle of a tour, had a tour booked, even if you would have spent money on like your flights and preparing everything ahead that you wouldn't get back. So I know even like the artists that had like, I don't know, a week left of tour in Europe and they've lost like £10,000 that they definitely can't get back.
Yeah.
Even if those dates are rescheduled, you still lost all that money. and obviously the knock-on effect to like all your crew as well, the tour managers, the musicians, like no one's getting paid. It's a massive.
Is there insurance? Do artists have insurance for these type of things? I just wondered. Yeah.
I know that people are looking into that right now, and like loads of like email threads about the insurance, but it seems like it's quite a grey area. I'm hearing a lot of different mixed things about it.
I heard that for the big festivals, in terms of insurance, I don't know, Abe, you'll be better placed, but I read that it's basically a game of chicken. So like if the major festivals cancel, they owe the artists money. Whereas if the artists say, because of Corona, we can't perform, then the promoters don't owe them money. So it's a bit of who's
that's basically it. And there's a grey area in between that, where it's if the government actually say that you can't do that event, which for a lot of the festivals for the company I work for hasn't quite happened yet because they're happening in June and July, then there's an argument that the insurance or who would be liable for the payouts there, because obviously we've sold tickets, we've engaged crew, we've paid some advances. Like, do we need to recoup on those advances? There's lots of questions that no one's really catered for, but the majority of the festivals will have insurance. It's just whether or not the insurance will cover something like this is the question.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most insurance covers things like natural disasters, like weather. Like if something completely rained off, I think was it last year or the year before? I think it was last summer. One of the festivals up north got cancelled because of the rain.
Yeah, it was last year, I think.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of festivals as well that are going to keep the same lineups and just reschedule it so they don't have anything back.
Yeah, but I think the difficulty with that, Linda, is though because of the seasons we have, especially in the UK, it's literally only hot in June and July.
Yeah.
I know, like Coachella's obviously moved to October, and that's fine because it's still going to be mad hot there. But I don't know.
Yeah, we'd have to reschedule it for next year at the same time.
Next year, yeah.
Is that? But I don't rescheduled. It got cancelled. Then it gets rescheduled to next year.
We've rescheduled and postponed some to next year, but I'm sure, and I kind of know, almost guaranteed, some of those festivals may not happen next year just because they haven't got the legs to continue anymore. So it's all very well saying that now, but when it comes round and the business restructures and we start looking to invest in different things, actually some of those festivals where people were booked probably won't happen now. So it's a real grey. It's unprecedented. I hate using that word because I know everyone's using it, but it's just what it is.
But even one of my colleagues yesterday said that they're booking a tour in now for October, but the agent said to them, like, we can put it all in, but in October the promoters might not exist anymore and the venues may not exist anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we have no idea where we're going to be then.
Yeah.
How can a festival promise you'll be on the lineup next year when the whole structure might not even be the same?
Yeah.
And they can't even say that because festivals want people to buy tickets or come to a festival because they have the artist of that year. Everyone wants to be relevant. So even if they promised artists for last year, there may be a whole new like plethora of artists that they want to book that they'll be not able to if they keep the promise.
I think for the big festivals, like I know for Coachella, which happens in April, they start booking the people in October, November before. One thing that I will say is, and I probably shouldn't say it, what this whole situation has definitely shown is, though the music business is doing really well before this, there's certain institutions, off the top of my head, mainly the labels, like big labels, the big DSPs, the really large promoters like Live Nation, FG. There's certain institutions which are quite insulated, which don't live hand to mouth in terms of their revenue. There's a lot of people who operate in the music industry, maybe sort of like mid to low tier artists, crew, tours, everyone who works on like a tour, these sort of people, they live very much hand to mouth in terms of their revenue. And I think this sort of situation is kind of showing that in quite a harsh way, I guess. Everyone's kind of realizing that revenue isn't as promised as it was before.
And a lot of people in the music industry are self-employed or have a limited company and pay themselves through dividends. So right now they're not even going to really be able to apply for the self-employment income scheme, so they're going to be able to get anything.
Yeah, that's true. And also anyone that, like most people that are self-employed, also invest all of their profits straight back into their own business. So then your profit margins are tiny, and if they're paying a percentage of the profit, you're not going to get nothing back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lou,
Go on, Tim.
I was going to say to Linda and Lou, as an artist and as someone who manages artists, what's your attitude towards sort of getting your artists, or yourself, Lou, performing the sort of live shows and sort of charging your fans to sort of do it? Are you sort of against that, or do you think, given the, are you against it because you think a lot of people are suffering financially now, it's not fair to sort of earn money in this sort of situation, or are you quite open to that?
I'm open to it, but I just don't really know whether it will make sense for any of my artists. And it's also just something that you feel like you want to do for your fans. I just feel like you'd probably feel really uncomfortable charging them, even if it was a small amount. I don't know, like we done like the Colours live stream the other day, and like we're talking to a couple of other people about doing these live streams. But it's also a time where you feel like you want to give to your fans more than ever, really. So I don't know. I think I'm waiting to see like kind of how that pans out.
Or like if rather than operating via paywall, sort of something like a tip, whereby there's the option for after the performance for the fans to tip whatever they feel comfortable tipping, and then maybe as a consequence from that, you can buy like, I don't know, like one-on-one conversation with Lou.
This is your email chain, isn't it, Tim?
This is product testing, isn't it? 101.
Sorry, Lou.
That makes more sense to me, like a kind of, rather than like paying up front like a ticket fee or something.
Do you think people will pay? I think I would much rather, and I have been doing more than I normally do. I'm just buying music now. Like I use a stream, and I always bought music, but now I'm like buying more. Just I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know whether this will get there or what the splits will be. But
where'd you buy from?
iTunes, Bandcamp. Those are the two I use. If I'm DJing stuff, it might be. Bandcamp on Juno and stuff.
Bandcamp have done some good stuff, haven't they, in terms of giving artists? Did they waive the fees on Bandcamp? I think they did.
Only for one day.
Oh wow!
I mean, yeah, it's mad, and it should be continuing. But at least they're the only streaming service in ESP to do it. So everyone else is like, for me, it's mental that Spotify and Apple haven't even like a tiny percentage adjustment would make a difference.
It's nuts. I was literally writing an article about all of this stuff with work yesterday, and yeah, you're right. It's literally only Bandcamp that did that waive the fee thing on like the 20th of March. Spotify's got like their own COVID relief sort of hub, which gives you loads of information, like curated podcast playlists, all that shit, but nothing to like directly support artists financially. It'll give you all the resources and all the links to go and find where to get financial support, but not the actual financial support itself.
Exactly.
Which is mad, because these companies make so much money off artists. I just find it a bit alarming that.
I think this is where the models just can fundamentally flaw. Like I know streaming was put there to kind of stop piracy and illegally downloading, but actually, for $9.99 a month, I get unlimited music. I can play it as much as I want. I can use it as much as I want. If I listen to over 100 artists, like how does that financially make any sense? We're just consuming too much, and I think that the model is fundamentally flawed.
I feel a bit different about that, because access to music means then the industry has grown to a point now where some artists in a remote part of the country, if their streams are up, they can go on tour to specific areas, they can target areas. And I know, Louis, you've looked at these.
I don't know that's true, man. I think that's part of like the dream that's sold, and it's partly true. But I'd love to know a lot more detail and have a lot more access to the analytics than we were ever going to be allowed to be able to actually use that to do touring. They're like, oh yeah, you can see where you're playing at this time, but it's done on a weekly basis, 28-day basis, or like a lifetime. That's actually like not always that helpful.
Right. What would you prefer? Like more real-time data back?
No, you should have access to those people that are your fan base. It's like the same thing as Instagram. You have all those followers and you post a picture, but you're never going to get to the vast majority.
That's the DSP issue. That's because that's the problem. They're the middleman where the fans are going, where your music's going, and that labels have. That's the problem that fans have, is they have all that data.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that what Ryan Leslie tried to do by cutting that out? Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he make all of his music available on his websites, for example? So you had to go to his website to listen to his music. You can get his mobile number on his website. And then by cutting out that middleman, although he wasn't making crazy streams, obviously you're getting 100% of all of the revenue and stuff from your...
Yeah, but that's just not feasible though. Like,
not for everyone.
It's not feasible for anyone. Like, if you just choose your top 20 artists that you listen to, you're not going to go to 20 different sites to get the access to the information.
I don't know.
And I think, to go back to your point and about, you know, how streaming's allowed everything to be global and stuff. You got to remember, before that, we were all just downloading music for free anyway. So it's the lesser of two evils, really. And there are a lot of benefits for it.
Yeah, there's definitely benefits.
Technology, you can't blame any specific institution. It's technology, right? It's technology advanced.
I'm just looking at the price. I'm looking at the value of the art. And like, I think I was on Twitter the other day, and Steve Lacy just put a thing out where he was like, as an artist, you work months on a project, and this will go beyond COVID and any pandemic. You work months, you put a lot of effort into a project for someone to listen to it in a microwave for like one day, never put it out and play it again. You get 0.0002. Is that what the way it should be working?
But it's the same argument for someone who works in TV, who spends a whole year creating a TV series, and it goes on Netflix, and everyone binges on it within a day and a half. And again, you only pay.
I work in the film world, and the money you get paid so well because it's so well unionized. Like, people really properly get paid.
Yeah, I mean, the unionization in the film industry comes in terms of like the writers, and that's why people like Hypnosis, the publisher that I think you were talking about, that's doing really well. That's why they were set up, because their whole point is, once the songwriters in the industry have enough control, then they can argue for better splits.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's kind of the way the world has gone. We all just literally consume stuff so quickly. That's all forms of entertainment.
My guys at Children's Zeus, I saw them tweet, like, if musicians survive through this, like mid-level musicians and lower-level musicians survive through this, people are going to have to change their concept of the value of music, because otherwise it's not going to survive in the way it has been, because everyone's suddenly realizing, well, it is so check to check. Suddenly, if you have all the option of gigs and performing live taken away, and your only option is your monthly income from streaming, it's like a very different game.
But I feel like it's always been like that for artists. I feel like since, like, even you go back to like Motown days, like most artists, unless you were like top tier like Aretha Franklin, you lived from like check to check. It's always been.
Yeah, but then,
and I think if you put up the subscription fee on something like Spotify to higher than $9.99 a month, then less people are going to subscribe. So I guess the idea is that if one person's playing thousands of songs a month, there'll be someone else that's only playing one song a month, and that balances out.
Yeah,
fair point.
I don't know. I think ultimately this is why these businesses are so clever. They hook you on a freemium. If Spotify were even to increase the monthly subscription from £9 to £12, and part of that revenue went to artists, like how many consumers would be upset about that? And if so, do you really appreciate the value of music? Because ultimately, like, this is people's livelihoods. You wouldn't necessarily be like...
This is one of the things that will change, like, after like, the world does change. Maybe there will be more value on music, but I guess that is down to the people as well. Not
the consumer, yeah, it's down to consumer, yeah.
I personally think the change with DSPs will come is, at the moment, there's only like major DSPs that we all use, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, these are things like that, right? I think what will eventually happen is, if I take, for example, you mainly listen to sort of hip hop music. I think what might happen is there may be a DSP which is purely for hip hop music. So rather than having 40,000 songs, you're paying $10.99 for, it has maybe only 5,000 songs or 2,000 songs, but that's specifically for your sort of music which you like, and you're paying $9.99 for it. So similar to what happens in TV now, with rather than paying everyone goes on Netflix, it's like Disney saying, no, if you just want Disney content, you come to us and pay $9.99. It's Hulu saying, if you want Hulu content, you pay this. So there may be that. At the moment, streaming is very much in its infancy. There's not enough options for people to choose from. So I feel like you have to give it time the same way the TV world's now caught up with specialization on your interest. I think eventually that might happen with music. So if you like hip hop music, there may be a streaming platform that's purely just for hip hop artists, which is obviously means they're going to get more revenue from it because it's more driving everyone who likes hip hop to that DSP to listen to it and stream from there. And there's less competition as well with the likes.
But do you not just think, so this is my last point on this, and I know I'm not an expert, so I just want to ask you all, yeah? So people used to illegally download music. Let me just caveat that. In my teenage years, people used to illegally download music. That is all but, not impossible, but it's very difficult to do now because of the technology that they can shut down all of these illegal links. It still happens, but music piracy, I'm assuming, has gone down considerably. So now we're in a world where actually you can't illegally trading music isn't that easy. So why can we not just pay for it like we normally would? The model is just like, I feel like the DSPs have shut down all the piracy and taken all the income for themselves. They've blocked it. How many artists sell direct to consumer or through a channel where you buy an album or buy a song? It doesn't happen anymore. I used to buy singles. That's it. That's it. Just pissed me off a bit.
Is there a right date to?
I went earlier.
He's got a background noise.
Background?
Who's got a background? Yeah, sure. Is there a right date to postpone your show tour to now? Because my company, and I can say it because we're pushing back a lot of shows, and everyone's just assuming come July, August, everything's gonna be okay. It doesn't feel right to me.
We postponed originally to October, but then we were told October's not even safe. So we're now scheduling a tour for this time next year.
Wow.
When you say safe, Linda, is that because what you mentioned about the promoters might not be in business? Or?
Well, I guess like right now, everyone's thinking September, October is when things are going to go back to normal, we hope. So everyone's rescheduling for that time. So like everything's already going to be booked up for that time now. And you're just it's not definite. So imagine you spend all that time, you schedule it all, everything in place, and then you have to postpone it again. But then March is going to be full because everyone else is already booked for March. So it's almost better for us. We're not going to risk it. We're going to book in for March and feel like that will be safer.
Yeah.
I've got a question. Obviously, this is like we'd like to think this is like a one-off event, this pandemic, and hopefully it won't happen again in the short or medium term. So do you think there'll actually be any changes, or do you think once this is all over by whatever date and the world readjusts and everyone starts going out again and doing what they normally do you think there's actually going to be any long-lasting change, or do you think we're all just going to go back to what we did before?
This won't be the last pandemic. It's not even possible.
This is definitely going to change, by the way, 100%.
I think the world has changed already.
It has to. And Louis, I think what you said, this is not the only pandemic that's going to happen in our lifetime. So
no, I mean we've had other pandemics like SARS and bird flu.
No, but I mean of this scale, as in like something that's actually going to affect the whole planet. I feel like.
But there's the flip side. The same way you say that things will change, like I do think there's going to be changes. Like there's an older generation now who now use Deliveroo or now order. A lot of people. No, what do you mean? Like there's a lot of people. Like, we're all like, a lot of our jobs will change now. I think a lot of our bosses will be a lot more open to us working from home and realise we can do the work. So I do think there'll be those sort of changes.
Yeah.
But if there was another pandemic, do you not think the world as a whole would be better place to deal with it? Like I kind of feel like the reason why this situation is so shit is because so many countries just had no clue how to deal with it, and we as a population were so new to the idea of like staying at home. I think if this ever happened again, if the government said stay your ass at home, I think we'll all be a lot quicker to stay our ass at home because we realise the benefits of it. So
100%, but it's just the mass control of that many people. Like you can tell us to stay at home, we will listen to you, but is Simon down the road going to listen to you? I saw someone in Tesco's yesterday that literally looked like he was dead. So not everyone is listening to this information from the government, is what I'm trying to say.
And also, the government is really not interested and invested in human lives. It's much more about it's still more about economy than anything. So it's 100%. Like the decisions that governments around the world generally are making are based on saving the economy. And until that changes, it's going to be the same. And we're going to keep having global pandemics because global warming's putting the environment in that sweet spot of like a warm soup for more bacteria and viruses to spread more easily. And the more we encroach into wild spaces, the more that we expose ourselves to new and wild diseases. And that's what coronaviruses come from. And it's only the beginning. Like, I think it's like 75% of epidemics and pandemics and not just epidemics and pandemics, but just new diseases in humans come from wild animals.
So we need to stop eating them, don't we?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think as well, within the music industry, I don't foresee there being any substantial change. All of the problems and issues that we've been talking about with regards to support for artists and understanding from the DSPs, I can't see that changing. Promoters will be like vultures in the same way they've always been. They will flee to what is hot and they will leave what is not. That is what is going to persist. And that I just don't think that's going to change. I feel like everyone's locked inside now and it's like, oh, we're on IG Live. This is a new way of doing things. And people might use it as a medium, for example, and other mediums have been successful. But I don't foresee there being any change. I think as humans, we adapt to the situation that we're in. And as soon as we're out of this, we just revert to type.
I also do think sometimes industries reflect societal changes. And even though the music industry is a bit of a laggard in that regard, I feel like big things like this might actually spark changes in individual artists, maybe putting pressure to their labels or management or whatever. I don't know. I'd like to think that there is like a positive outcome off the back of this for musicians, because at the minute they're just getting
I think from what I'm seeing, and this is only my personal like view, and everyone's probably seeing different things, but the artists that I know and that I'm speaking to through this, the consensus seems to be quite similar in that everyone realizes there needs to be a whole new value, and a lot of that's not going to come from the established institutions that we're seeing. So I think an artist-led institution or more artist-led institutions are going to start appearing, because that's the only way we control our value.
I mean,
if you look at other industries that do control their value,
like a union. But
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm surprised artists don't have a trade union.
Yeah.
Like you guys, of all sort of industries, you really should.
Well, there is a musicians union, but it doesn't work.
There is
It's hard to.
like the MMF as well.
Yeah, the MMF, but I mean like a
I
proper,
think that's slightly better, that one.
yeah, a proper like union where all artists pay in whatever amount, and then
yeah, but do artists want to do that?
Then it becomes too big a union. That's the issue. Yeah, it's really hard to do that when you have like music is so consumed, so proliferated in different markets, different genres. Yeah. How do you not end up having this like one super mega union that essentially becomes a label or becomes a DSP in its own guise? It's really hard to. I know what you mean.
Is really fighting for artists right now, and like in Parliament and everything, they're really doing like campaigning as much as they can.
Who's that?
The MMF.
Oh yeah, the MMF is pretty good actually.
manager music one. Yeah. MMF.
It's interesting hearing a manager's point of view, because like quite a few artists at the moment, like I don't have a manager, so I'm just working on albums. So I don't really have a need of one right yet. But it's like that whole you having to now look a year ahead of this point is quite interesting. Do you think releasing at this time is bad or good? I'd be interested to know, because I've heard both sides.
I've heard people say like put everything on hold, don't do any releases, but I don't think you can. I think for my artists, I think we just got to keep going. But obviously it's so tough. Like I'm putting together a timeline and I've got no live dates, I've got no promo, we can't do like radio sessions, we can't do photo shoots, we can't do like face-to-face press things. Like, so how am I going to promote this record? Like it's really, really difficult. But then I guess every artist is in that boat. So
I can't help get excited by that a little bit, because maybe then it just becomes just about the music again. And maybe that's like a fantasy, and maybe that's not how it would be in reality. But I like to think a little bit, maybe some of the PR stuff that sometimes distracts from the music is lessened, and it's a bit more just about what's put out.
One last question. What role do you think brands have to play in not only but specifically in the music industry in this period? So obviously we talked about DSPs, talked about promoters and venues. but a lot of people are getting a lot of money from brands pre-COVID-19, and brand partnerships obviously are thriving. What role do you think they have, if any, to play in this time?
Well, it's hard because I guess a lot of the branding deals that I've done in the past to like promote a product or do a live show for them, like wouldn't really make sense right now for those brands to do anything. I guess it depends what the brand is.
Yeah, because I've seen a few of like so-and-so's on our IG live right now, and I'm thinking that must come with the check, surely. But to what extent?
But you know, a lot of brands love to be like, we're going to give you so much exposure, so do it for free. I've still had quite a lot of those requests through, and I'm like,
wow. Even now, they're trying to ask artists to do stuff for free. Wow.
Definitely.
I mean, what I would say is because everyone is indoors and everyone's on their phones, I definitely think there's a lot more attention on artists and like the really popular ones. So I think definitely the popular ones, there's definitely an opportunity for them to get a bag from certain brands. Like, I think Abe, you and I were talking about how Tory Lanez, I think he broke the record, right, for the IG Live thing. And what was it? He always has Patron, right, in his yeah. Like, I mean, you can definitely probably get a bag. Like, you're gonna have 300,000 eyes on a bottle of Patron. Drake's there, Chris Brown's there, all these different artists are there. It's a fun environment. That's like good promotion for them. Like, then that all goes back to the point: do you have enough audience to then demand a bag?
Yeah, I think the bigger artists probably can still do that, but for smaller independent artists, I think it would be tough.
Difficult.
Yeah, really tough. Also, where are the bigger artists? I feel quite amazed that there's not more bigger artists that have huge amounts of money that aren't kind of supporting the industry that's given so much to them. Like, if these labels aren't supporting, why, you know, where's the Millionaire Boys Club at the moment? Like,
this is the same question.
Where's the Rock Nation brunch, bruv? Where the Rock Nation brunch?
Yeah, it's true.
Jay-Z donated £1 million. Rihanna
A million.
A million
is nothing.
A million is nothing.
Yeah.
For clarity, was that to artists or was that just to the crisis?
But
that's the crisis, isn't it?
That's
so
what
thank you.
Really weird. I think that's really. I mean, in our respective fields, if someone said to me, "I have to give my rival money in this situation,"
that's the problem there, though.
This is the problem.
You just hit the nail on the head. You should never think of another musician as a rival. It doesn't work like that. That's a really like negative capitalist like mentality. I'm gonna pull you out on that because
it's true,
money doesn't work like that. It's not. If I make money, it's not taken away from someone else because capital is invented. Like it's just about directing that capital. If you imagine it as a stream towards you, but it doesn't mean I'm diverting the flow from someone else. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think we're seeing the same with a lot of industries. Thinking about football, where they've asked Premier League players to take a cut. The health secretary asked them to take a pay cut, which is interesting. But again,
they got to take a cut.
They should, but why should they? People are saying they should donate to the lower leagues, but then this is back to the same point we're making with music. So yeah, it is interesting.
A last one, like a real world thing that I'm now going through, which I'll be interested to put to you guys. So I have my professional studio up in Tottenham, which I'm not essentially legally allowed to go to anymore because of the lockdown. Obviously, there's loads of studios there and there's loads of artists, and they're aware of the situation, especially for artists not having much income anymore. But they're not freezing the rent on the studios anymore. So it's like suddenly I have this possibility that you lose the studio. How long is this going to go on for? Do I say I'm not going to pay anymore? Do I break the rules and just go to the studio? I can't clear out my stuff if I do leave the studio. It's like, I think there's going to be a lot of artists in this same position because suddenly we're having to make home setups again. And, you know, do we lose the studio? Do we keep paying? But then that payment is probably a huge chunk of the money that we're not earning.
Yeah.
Taken from our bank account, you know?
That's wrong, I think. I think the government really should step in. I was reading something about New York where they're saying that they're not evicting people anymore, and they should do something similar here where they potentially like freeze rents, or it's very much to the discretion of the landlord, I think, in the UK, which speaks to the capitalism you're talking about. But stuff like that is a shame because then you have to restart again, and who's looking after people like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So are we going to hear any new music from you, Louis, and any of your artists, Linda, that we should check out, try and plug for you guys in the next couple weeks?
Yes, I have Lewis Culture.
Okay. All right. Nice.
Single on the 24th, and then another single, and then I can't tell you, it's secret, but there'll be
nice.
Barney Artist is going to be releasing some new music soon as well.
Okay.
And a brand new act that I'm looking after called Gram, Gramn. So look out for that.
Okay.
What sort of genre of music is it, Linda? All this? Is it?
Like UK hip hop,
Sick.
soul.
Love it. We'll check it out. Who do you distribute with?
Fucking hell, bro.
What?
Wait, take this offline, Tim. Can you take this offline? Take this offline.
Louis,
What we do.
Louis.
Who's your distributor?
Oh, we're going through Believe. Yeah. Yeah, you should have come to us.
Yeah.
Facts. Louis, what are you saying?
Huh?
What are you
I
saying?
didn't
When's
come
this,
to
when's this album
Believe.
dropping, cuss?
Huh?
When's this album dropping, fam?
I say nothing, man. But I'm gonna drop an EP. I think 4 now, just because so much has changed because of this thing. Like so much of the funding has gone. Like from English Arts Council was going to be funding, and they cancelled all apart from their emergency one. So that's a huge crazy thing. So I need to speak to the Orchard. I need to restructure, make a new team, everything, man. It's crazy. But I'll try and I'll be putting out an EP. Sitting in the new setup right now, so it's just a spare room.
New lab, yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
All right.